I'm David Scandura.
I'm Justice Burkett.
And today we're here to find out, is The Social Network the greatest movie ever made?
Don't fish! Eat other fish! The marlins and the trout! What's he talking about?
When you were here before, couldn't look you in the eye. You're just like a Twi'lek. Your skin makes me cry.
Why are you singing
Oh, fuck.
Watto? Why are you sitting in my office singing Creep by Radiohead?
Are you guys recording a podcast?
Yeah, Watto, I know it's Friday, and
It's
we
a
normally
different-
record on
right.
Saturdays.
That's
but,
fair.
like,
Usually this room is vacant on a Friday night because I'm done working, so I'm not in my office. Are you always in here singing Creep by Radiohead on Friday nights?
No, I'm working on a covers album.
I don't know. I don't recall giving you permission to use my recording equipment for that. But
Oh.
it's fine, man. We're good.
Uh,
We're homies.
Well, to be fair, I don't recall the university giving you permission to use the recording equipment for your podcast. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to narc on you. Yeah, I'm working on a covers album of love songs. I know you guys were watching The Social Network, directed by David Fincher.
That's right. Yeah.
And I know that the trailer had that really sad version of Creep, and I thought it'd be cool to put that on my album.
You know, I haven't seen the trailer for this movie in a really long time. I've seen the movie, 3 times in the last 5 or so years. I haven't seen the trailer in a long time, so I forgot about that. I forgot about the Creep trailer.
I remember when the trailer came out, I really liked the trailer, even though I still wasn't sold on the idea of a Facebook movie. But I looked up that choir group that does that version of Creep, and I started listening to tons of their stuff, and they have tons of they did a few Nine Inch Nails covers and such. Watto, what else do you have planned for your covers album?
Well, I'm also doing Tom Waits.
That is a really good fit, my
I
friend.
hope that I don't fall in love with you.
Okay,
Falling in love just makes me blue,
That's-
because I'm a Troidarian, you see.
that's maybe a little early in Tom Waits' catalog for your vocal range. I was thinking a little bit more like Mule Variations, Swordfish Trombones era Waits. Would fit your vocal style.
Oh, when he starts banging pots and pans together.
Yeah. And his voice sounds literally exactly the way you sound.
I had a good home, but I left.
To be clear, that was not Watto. That was me doing a Tom Waits impression.
That sounded pretty good. Do you
sh-
want to guest star on my covers album?
Oh hell yeah! I'll be a feature on the Watto Tom Waits covers album.
Okay.
Fuck yeah.
Well, if you guys are going to record the podcast, I'll just go back inside your walls. I
All
think George misses me, and normally on Friday nights we'll have a little romantic dinner, and then he fucks me in the asshole.
Wow.
So,
all right. Well, have fun with all that. I know it's getting a little cold at night, but I have turned the heat on. So, if you're, nice and toasty in there, then that's good. If you're a little too chilly, let me know.
Yeah.
Have fun. Fucking George Lucas, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think that we needed to know that.
It seems like a
I'm-
little bit too much information for the
I'm-
state of our friendship.
Right, I'm really happy for you guys. Just I don't live here, but please keep boundaries in mind for the sake of my friend
Yeah.
and his wife and their home.
Yes.
okay, I would make sure not to scream too loud when he's balls deep in my asshole. All right, guys, I'll see you later.
Bye, Watto.
Bye, Watto.
Why did his later sound a little French?
I don't know.
He was like, "See you later." He also sounded a little bit like TJ Maxx a couple of times, and I was like, "Is that part of his covers album? Is he going to do TJ Maxx
oh,
covers?"
well, that'd be a good suggestion.
Because his voice just started sounding a little bit like
TJ Maxx has
like
plenty
TJ
of songs
Maxx.
about his wife.
He does, yeah. Watto doesn't have a wife, except for a potentially George. Maybe Watto is George Lucas's wife, or the other way around. I don't judge.
I don't know. Maybe they have a polycule.
polycule?
Is that
Yeah.
what the kids are into these days?
Yeah. Anyway,
Maybe they're banging other Star Wars
what
characters.
show are these good people listening to, David?
They're listening to The Greatest Movie Ever Made, a show where we watch a movie and tell you if it's the greatest movie ever made.
Yes, that's correct. And I'm guessing you derailed the Top of the Social Network episode. Well, Watto, sorry, derailed the Top of the Social Network episode because you don't like this movie very much and you don't want to talk about it.
We'll get to my opinion on the film.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see because I know that you had expressed not liking this movie. But I don't know how long you hadn't watched it in, so it'll just be interesting to see how it worked for you this time.
Yeah. A movie that is so thoroughly entertaining and compelling that while you're watching it, it's the only thing that matters in the world. I'm David Scandura, joined as always by my co-host and, guy who
You could
didn't make it to 50 podcast listeners without making a few enemies.
There you go. You could have literally just said tech bro because that is technically correct.
That is your job.
I do work for a large tech company.
But you have a much better fashion sense than anyone in this movie.
I guess so. I mean, I'm kind of dressed. I mean, I'm into t-shirt and basketball shorts. I'm a little bit like dressed like Zuck right now. Although he's got the cargo shorts, not the basketball shorts.
The scene beginning in the movie when he's at the hearing at Harvard for the face smash
yes
thing. And he's in a gray hoodie and jeans and flip-flops.
And his Adidas slides.
What the fuck is that shit?
That is the wardrobe of a man who literally does not give a shit.
Are those the fuck you flip-flops that Andrew Garfield is referring to later in his famous quote?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Adidas slides, I think, are the fuck you flip-flops.
Because that just registered with me last night for the first time.
Yeah, he's wearing those Adidas slides in various scenes throughout this film. I like the one where he gets an idea and runs out into the snow and is still wearing his Adidas flip-flops.
Oh, his Eureka moment?
Right, and then he has a moment where he's like, oh shit, my feet are really fucking cold. It's kind of funny.
I have shoveled the driveway in flip-flops before.
Yeah. Yeah, I've shoveled snow in sandals as well. I go out in sandals in the winter, when I'm just like checking my mail or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like slippers.
Yeah, I've definitely eaten shit doing it sometimes too, but
Yeah. Not literally eating shit, but just
no.
Slipped and fallen.
On
Sorry,
my ass.
I always think like I use the phrase eat shit to mean slip and fall, and then every time I hear somebody else say it, I'm like, come again? Because for whatever reason, even though it's a phrase that's in my common vernacular, the first thing I imagine is someone just chowing down on
consuming
Dookie
feces.
when I hear somebody else say it. Anyway, first Fincher movie, but before we get into that, David, how are you doing?
I'm good, I think. Doing better than I was last week at the very least. And had a nice lunch with my folks today. Been spending a lot of money lately on frivolous bullshit. As Tyler Durden would say, the things you own end up owning you. But you know what? If I'm owned by the 5-inch tall Godzilla figure that I bought for $13 at Target 10 minutes before this podcast recording,
so be it.
So be it, I guess.
If you're owned by your your three Johnny Paycheck t-shirts.
Yeah, I'm good. Media I have to recommend is the album Red-Headed Stranger by Willie Nelson, which I bought on CD from our local secondhand store. And it was really nice because normally they don't have a lot of like classic Willie. It's like they got the greatest hits compilations and a couple live albums, and then a couple of the newer ones that some jackoff bought at Walmart when they came out and listened to it once, and then they cleared out their CD collection and got rid of it.
Right.
Because I've always been looking for like Shotgun Willie, Phases and Stages, the classic 70s Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
And I bought Red-Headed Stranger on CD, and I saw it there, and it's incredible.
Hell yeah.
It's a concept album, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it's he uses a lot of covers as part of the narrative, which is really interesting. It's also very sparse, which I like. And I guess when he originally gave it to the label, they were like, "Are these demos?" He's like, "No, this is the album." And they were like, "This sounds like shit." And he ended up releasing it anyway because he had creative control, and he's like, "Fuck you, I have creative control."
He's like,
so I'm going to release the album
whatever the fuck I want.
And was very successful and sold a lot. So fuck
Yeah.
those guys.
Nice.
But yeah, Red-Headed Stranger by Willie Nelson. That's my
Hell
recommendation.
yeah.
How are you?
I, much like Bo Burnham in Inside, feel like shit. If you want to know how I'm doing, just go listen to the song Shit from Inside by Bo Burnham. Because look in the mirror, say what's up, you useless fuck, is what I've been doing every single morning that I have woken up this week. Work made me cry twice yesterday. I feel like fucking garbage. I am having such a bad time.
Maybe you should invent an app and become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, if only I had the gift of genius like Mark Zuckerberg, and then I'd be happy. Although I don't think that's what this movie tells us. I think the movie posits that he's a deeply unhappy human being. And that he's making all of us unhappy as punishment for that. But we'll get into the movie.
I'm sorry that work has been causing you so much stress this week.
It's fine. I just feel bad at my job and also bad at everything else. And that's a bad way to feel. So I feel like shit. And that's okay. It will hopefully pass.
There are people who love you.
Thank
Our
you.
listeners love you. Your dogs love you.
I am aware of that. They let me know quite frequently, as do you, to be fair.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, that's not to say that there's nothing good going on in my life, but this week the bad has outweighed the good, and sometimes that happens, and that's all right. Anyway, I don't have any media to recommend. I don't have any media to recommend. There's nothing else for me to add to that.
Okay.
But the media that we're talking about this week, I figured we would celebrate your birthday, which is tomorrow, by making you watch a movie that, again, historically you have not liked very much, by a director that I would hazard to guess you do enjoy.
Yeah,
David Fincher.
I would say that I love Fincher. I don't know that Fincher is one of my favorites, but he's directed one of my favorite movies at the very least, which is Fight Club.
Yeah. Interesting favorite Fincher.
Dealing with a lot of the same themes as this film in certain ways.
Yes.
One that I went back to recently and was still just like, oh yeah, the jokes about this movie, the reputation that this movie has for being a haven for incels and all that shit. Throw all of that out of the window. This movie is perfect. This is a perfect. Not a frame of this movie is out of place.
I think. Yeah, right. I think the thing with Fight Club is I agree that movie is very, very, very good. I love Fight Club. I do think the thing with Fight Club is just like it's one of those where just the worst people in the world have latched onto it. And so it's like even if that's not the fault of the movie, it's just always sort of like baggage that I feel like I carry with it, where I'm like, oh man, now I just like see incels quoting this line. You know?
Yeah, I think I latched onto it at the right time, which was high school. And I also read the book. I didn't read the book first.
Yeah.
Fight Club was one that was like on TV all the time, and it was always the end. So I always knew the twist with Tyler Durden.
Right.
By the time I finally actually sat down to watch the whole thing from front to back. But it was one of those that just kind of expanded my my horizons as far as what storytelling can be, what filmmaking can be.
Yeah,
but
it's a very creatively shot and edited movie.
Yeah.
Fight Club. Yeah.
But I also quite enjoy Seven.
Yeah.
And
I
Zodiac.
just watched Seven yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so in addition to watching, I didn't log it on Letterboxd because I was walking my dogs for like the last little bit, but I've seen that and seen a bazillion times.
Yeah.
So I watched most of Seven.
Yeah.
But yeah, great movie. Zodiac is my favorite Fincher.
I always want to watch Zodiac. I'm always like...
We should do Zodiac on the show, probably not for a while because we're currently doing the Social Network.
I thought we should do Zodiac on the show, but it's one that I'm always... Whenever I've watched it, I'm like, this is fucking great.
Yeah.
Why don't I watch this more often?
Zodiac is my favorite Fincher. I think it is the one from him that I would probably argue the most is like his masterpiece so far. I also have very, very strong positive feelings about the movie that we're here to talk about today, The Social Network. I think this is a masterpiece of sorts from Fincher. But I also really like Gone Girl. That's a great movie. I haven't seen The Killer. I haven't seen Mank.
I've seen Curious Case of Benjamin Button once.
I saw that movie once in the theater, but that was my first date with my first high school girlfriend. So I remember almost none of that movie because I was making out.
You're getting down with some Benjamin
to
Button.
Benjamin Button, yes.
I mean, Kate
so
Blanchett is beautiful in that
I
film.
did technically see that movie, but I remember like not a frame. I remember the guy who got struck by lightning 3 times or whatever he says.
Oh,
in the
okay.
movie. There's a guy who's been struck by lightning multiple times. I remember that. I guess that's when I came up for air in that movie. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Beautifully shot. Anyway.
Yeah, I probably didn't even know who David Fincher was then. That's probably the first Fincher movie I saw.
Fucking wild.
Yeah.
That's a wild first Fincher.
That's probably the first one because I definitely, that would have been sophomore year of high school for me when that came out.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wouldn't have seen Seven at that point. Hadn't seen Fight Club, didn't see that till college. Yeah, I think it's probably the one.
Is Panic Room Fincher?
Panic Room's Fincher, but I've never seen
People forget about that
I've
one.
never seen
I don't
The
know
Game.
that I've seen that.
I've also never seen The Game.
The
That's
Game
him
is the
too.
one that everyone always forgets about, and I have that
Yeah.
sitting on my shelf, I think,
Yeah.
to watch eventually. So yeah, I mean, I like Fincher a lot. He's not in my upper, like my upper echelon, top tier filmmakers, but I he's got a great style. He's he salvaged Alien 3. He made Alien 3 watchable, which is a testament to how good of a director he is.
You know what's funny? I think there's literally only one film in his filmography that we have not mentioned yet, and it's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is also a movie that fucking rules.
Okay,
I really like that movie.
I've always wanted to read the book first, so
it's a great book. I've read the whole trilogy. It's one of the few book series
cool.
that I have read.
I have the book, and I started it at one point in my life, and I got confused and I stopped.
I think it's a great book. I think the main male character is an obvious self-insert for the author, and at times that can be a little bit like, oh, this guy's hot and women are falling all over him. And it's like maybe a little like lightly misogynistic and like a little bit like this fucking author stroking his own dick about how much women love him. But I think that's the only real negative thing I have to say about that book. And other than that, it's a great thriller. It's really tightly paced. It's like very keeps you guessing. It's good shit.
Mm-hmm.
And Fincher did a great job adapting it. I think it's a great movie.
And is Rooney Mara?
Yes, she's Lisbeth.
The titular girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yes,
in that?
Lisbeth Salander, the girl with the dragon tattoo,
Cool.
is Rooney Mara, who is also in this
also
movie
in this,
for a
and,
little bit.
and she's great in this.
Yeah, and Daniel Craig is the male lead in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah,
and he's great in that. Man, what a great fucking movie. We should also do that one. Anyway. But we're not doing that
We're
today.
talking about the social
We're
network.
not doing Girl with the Dragon Tattoo or Zodiac.
We're talking about the fucking social network.
We're doing the social network.
they made a movie about Facebook.
They did make a movie about Facebook. They made a movie about how nerds are the most toxic of toxic masculine archetypes, and how now they rule the world and how that is worse for all of us. I think is what this movie is about.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also think this movie is about Aaron Sorkin wrote his Sorkiniest script that he's ever Sorkined, and David Fincher took it and was like, you know what? I'm just gonna coast through this one, and I'm gonna let Sorkin take. I feel like from the opening scene of this film, it is so Sorkin-y.
It's very Sorkin-y.
And I feel like Sorkin is sitting next to Fincher in the director's chair, and he's the one like Fincher's doing everything else, and Sorkin's directing the actors.
I kind of strongly disagree. And I think the place where I disagree the strongest is maybe Justin Timberlake. Because I've never seen him do what he does in this movie anywhere else, where he is performing the like handsome, funny, charming guy, and also simultaneously underneath you can like detect his fragility and his like there is like a tense, insecure little pervert inside of him for the entire movie that just comes out in little spurts. And I feel like that is fully Fincher directing actors to me.
Okay.
Where he seems like such a tense little creep who is like performing bravado.
Well, Timberlake has never been a great actor in my opinion.
He's great in this movie, in my opinion.
I think he's good in this film. I think this is probably the best that I've seen him.
Yeah, I agree. I've liked him in stuff, but this is my favorite from him.
This is a performance.
Yes.
So yeah.
But I get what you're saying with the Sorkin of it all, which leads me to ask, because you and I have never talked about Aaron Sorkin, I don't think, in the history of our friendship. How do you feel about Aaron Sorkin?
I don't know. I think this might be my point of reference for Aaron Sorkin, which is weird. Like I haven't seen West Wing. I don't know that I've seen any of his other films that he's written or directed. I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, he's written for a lot of movies.
But knowing his style, this just feels very, 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 very Sorkin-y to me.
Yeah.
I
would say
I noticed, I was thinking this last night. Sorkin's writing style and the way that actors often act in his films, sort of reminds me of Gilmore Girls.
Okay, yeah.
Am I right?
No, that you're totally right. And also, Amy Sherman Palladino, who wrote Gilmore Girls, is very vocal in her writing about her influences. She will directly reference writers and directors who she is influencing and just like put their names in her characters' mouths. She, in Gilmore Girls, like Sorkin gets mentioned.
Wow, because I've seen a couple Gilmore Girls episodes.
Yeah.
And I was thinking last night, who else writes like this?
It's a similar...
And it's Gilmore Girls.
It's a similar rapid fire. Everyone is wittier and more eloquent than any actual human person has ever been. There's 1 million pop culture and politics and whatever references sprinkled into every line, right? It's the same type of sort of like rapid fire, like we're walking and talking, we're bullshitting, every scene ends with a joke sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend named Cody, and I remember something that he said at one point, because I don't know if he's a fan of Sorkin necessarily, but he's aware of, he's studied a lot of Sorkin's writing and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said about storytelling and screenwriting and characters is he wants characters to be intelligent, and he wants characters that live and die and triumph or fail based on their philosophies.
Right.
And I think that is true of the characters in this film.
Yes. Yes, triumph or fail based on their philosophies is interesting, because it's not actually based on their ethics or their morality, right? Which is a different thing.
Yeah.
Because Mark Zuckerberg wins. And that's kind of the key thing with revisiting this film in 2024 is it has become only more abundantly clear since 2010, when this film was released, how much unequivocally Mark Zuckerberg has won. He won. He beat everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And he didn't do it by being a good or ethical or likable person. He did it by being spiteful and by being first, right? And like, so his philosophy is like very self-centered. But I think you're right. His philosophy does inform his success in this movie. It's just that philosophy is not something that we as the audience necessarily gravitate to as like a positive thing.
Yeah, I think this, I know Sorkin said that he wanted to create, a nuanced take on Zuckerberg and show the different sides of him. And, Eisenberg was trying to bring that to the performance.
Yeah.
And one of the issues that I have with this film is I think you are right. I think it is unequivocally the portrait of a deeply disturbed, emotionally fragile, and broken man who, fought tooth and nail to betray everyone that he loved. And, to be the first and to be the best and to be better than anyone else purely out of spite and his own ego. But I also don't think it really truly digs deep enough to the heart of that issue and the heart of that problem. And not that this is like as a gotcha thing that I'm trying to drop on you or anything. Death of the author and all that. But when Aaron Sorkin won best screenplay for this.
Mhm.
Mark Zuckerberg was at the ceremony,
Yeah.
and he was like, you know, if I'm remembering the quote correctly, if I'm remembering the situation correctly, he was like, you know, you're not the person that you are at the end of this film. You're an altruistic, intelligent, loving person.
Yes.
And that to me is part. There is part of that in this script, and in this film, where I feel like it just treats Zuckerberg with a little bit of kid gloves, like just a hair too much of those that kind of like, I don't know. I'm having difficulty describing what I'm trying to articulate. I think you get it.
I think I do get it. And so there's a couple things that I want to talk about from what you just said, because I do agree with you that I think Sorkin, at the end of the day, is more sympathetic to Zuckerberg than maybe he should be for the story that the movie is telling.
Yeah.
I disagree with you that the movie overall is, because I think Fincher's direction and the editing of this film goes a long way towards removing the inherent sympathy that is in the script. One of the biggest examples to me is when they're creating Face Mash, right? And the all the nerds are in Zuckerberg's dorm, huddled around the computer, and putting the pictures side by side. And then we cut to the frat party at the Phoenix, where the girls are in their underwear dancing on tables and the guys are all leering at them. And we're like intercutting between these two things. And it's visual language that Sorkin might have had something to do with. Maybe he wrote those visual transitions into the script. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. Right. But the way that it ultimately ended up in the final cut of the movie, and the way that it's shot, and those things are juxtaposed against each other, it's like showing you this is as bad, if not worse, than the misogynistic behavior that is happening at this party.
Yeah.
Right? It's as misogynistic and as gross and more sad. Right?
I think the script is maybe too sympathetic to Zuckerberg. I don't think that's the way Fincher is interpreting it and directing it.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if he's going deep enough for me, because I feel like Sorkin's creative voice is outweighing Fincher's voice throughout this movie.
Okay.
And this is something that is like, I don't have specific examples. It is purely like
it's a gut
feeling.
Thing. Yeah.
This doesn't feel like a David Fincher film the way that Fight Club or Seven or Gone Girl does. This doesn't feel as distinct to me as those other films do.
Yeah.
Distinctly Fincher, I mean,
Yeah. It's interesting to me that you haven't seen Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, because I kind of think that is the missing link for you seeing more of Fincher in this movie, because in some ways I kind of think Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is the movie that is directed the most similarly to this movie by Fincher, right? And Sorkin's totally absent from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So like, I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like there is more of his style evolution as a filmmaker that you can see in that movie that like will give context to this one.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that I wanted to say, so first of all, I acknowledge but respectfully disagree with your opinion that Sorkin is outweighing Fincher here. I personally think that's a perfect 50-50 balance between the two of them. And Sorkin is hit and miss for me. I don't think all of his writing is good. The HBO show The Newsroom, which he wrote, is cringe-inducingly bad at times.
Oh man, you know how many times I've seen that clip of Jeff Daniels' speech from the first movie? The first episode.
I watched the whole show, buddy.
And everyone was like, that's the highlight of the show.
It gets so much, and that's pretty cringy even.
Yeah,
but it gets so much worse than that. You know what I think we can both agree rocks about this movie is the score. by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I hope we can agree on this.
Meh. I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay.
I
think it's one of the greatest film scores of all time, but continue with how much you like it.
You're a bigger Nine Inch Nails Reznor guy than I am.
I fucking love Trent Reznor.
So I've heard his scores in several films.
Yeah.
Along with Atticus Ross.
This was his first collaboration with Fincher.
Yeah.
Was this movie? Yeah.
And I remember this was a big deal when it came out. The soundtrack was. But I don't know that any of his music has really stuck out to me, or it's not necessarily something that I would listen to outside of the context of the movie. And that scene where the montage of the guys going on Face Mash and checking out which girl they like.
Yeah.
The song that plays is a little bit more upbeat. It's kind of just a Nine Inch Nails song.
Yeah.
I was like, this sort of just sounds like Nine Inch Nails.
That's why it rocks.
but there's a lots of ambient stuff here that I really that I like, and I think works well in the context of the film.
I really like that fucking 4-note piano motif that is the main theme of this movie. I think that fucking is so well deployed.
The score that they did for Challengers this year is rad.
Yeah.
It's really synthy and 80s. It's 80s synth mixed with orchestral music and choir stuff. And I don't know if Reznor and Atticus Ross did that stuff or it was, pulled from other sources, but they did the synth stuff that's in Challengers, and that's good.
I still got to see Challengers. I know everybody loved it. I got to see it.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, but I love this score. I think it's great. This is one of those movie scores that I will just put on and listen to because I think it's fucking great. I do think this movie has a banger opening scene. I like the opening scene in the bar.
I do too.
Yeah.
It also is very Sorkin-y. It establishes that this movie is going to be a Sorkin fest.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
Yeah, it's bantery.
There are points in this opening scene that maybe go a hair too far for me, but I think Rooney Mara is good.
Yes, Rooney Mara is great,
and it is the impetus for everything that Mark Zuckerberg does throughout the course of this film.
Yes, literally getting dumped turns him into a supervillain. That is what this movie is, which I think it is the correct story to tell with a guy like this, right? It's and Sorkin did invent some stuff in this movie. I don't have a comprehensive list of notes in front of me.
I think Zuckerberg himself has spoken about, he feels conflicted about his portrayal in the film.
Yes.
And
the course
of events.
He at one point did say that he wished that he was dead before someone made a movie about him.
To be fair, it is a little weird that this movie came out so soon after the events.
It's but it was he had a meteoric rise. It was a story worth telling. And the stuff that isn't made up in this movie is fucking insane, which is why there's a movie about it, right? The stuff that's real, that's from the book, basically everything that is said in the scenes where it is Andrew Garfield and Mark Zuckerberg and Armie Hammer with their lawyers, and it's recorded testimony. That stuff is mostly taken from legal transcripts, and some of it is verbatim what was said in those legal proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
So and that shit fucking Eduardo feeding a chicken, that's from that part. So that's real. It's fucking insane. And all of this shit with Zuckerberg being super dismissive of Eduardo and Armie Hammer's lawyers, the Winklevi's lawyers, him being the lawyer being do I deserve your attention?
Mm-hmm.
And he's no. That shit is again from the transcript. So it's that's fascinating, and I see why we made a movie about this guy 6 years after he launched this website, because it is a compelling figure and a compelling story.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and I do remember Sorkin saying he saw it as a story of betrayal and friendship and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the theme that I get most out of this film. And I think that outweighs some of the toxic masculinity stuff that is definitely here, and I think is very well illustrated with Mark Zuckerberg's arc in relation to Erica.
Yes, I remembered the thing that I was going to say. We have cut multiple times when I started saying something and then forgot what the fuck I was trying to say.
Okay, just say it. So you don't forget it again.
Yeah. So earlier you were saying that you think that this script is maybe a little bit too sympathetic to Mark Zuckerberg, and I do kind of agree that the Sorkin of it all maybe is a little bit too much in his camp. But I also think this film, crucially, resists the urge to do something that I think a lesser film would potentially do, which is paint Mark Zuckerberg as ontologically evil. Because he isn't. He's a human being, right? He's a human being who has, to be completely clear about where I stand on this, contributed much more pain and suffering to the world than good. Unequivocally. However, he's a guy, right? And even if he's a sociopath, which he might be, I don't know. I haven't diagnosed him and I'm not a psychiatrist. That doesn't make him ontologically evil, right? He's morally gray just like all of us are. His soul is in flux like everybody else's. And I think that that's a thing that this movie captures nicely. And by centering the conflict on friendship and betrayal and ambition, right? You get to kind of see the moral ambiguity of him as a human being, rather than it just painting him as just like, oh, this guy is a fucking shithead who ruined the entire world because he's intrinsically evil. It's like he is a shithead who ruined the entire world. It's not because he's intrinsically evil. It's because he's flawed, like all of us are.
So I haven't talked about my past with this movie, and we're really deep into this podcast, and like it's just gone off the rails. But I'll bring it up because you mentioned this.
I think we're doing actual analysis, which is why it feels like we're off the rails.
we're actually contributing some
Where
decent,
are all the boner
some
jokes?
decent film criticism.
We haven't mentioned cum once.
So I watched this a few years ago, very skeptical, very much still in the camp of, I can't believe they made a fucking movie about Facebook. I don't care if Fincher's name is on it. I sort of don't care.
Yeah.
And I finally sat down and watched it, and I was like, I don't dislike it. I didn't dislike it. I was like, this is very well made, and it has some good performances. I don't know if I have any emotional stakes in what's happening here. And there are two genres of film, subgenres, I guess, that I will compare this to. Prior to this film coming out, or around the time that this film was coming out, you had the epic of American greed, the story of America was built by great and terrible people.
Yes.
Your Wolf of Wall Streets, your There Will Be Bloods, and with those films, they did a very good job of investing the audience, aka me, in the rise of those characters and their fall.
Yeah.
It got me wrapped up and invested in their rise to power and the allure of luxury and success that they had, and that they manipulated so many other people with. And then, in the last hour of the film, the feds show up and they start getting lawsuits and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That trajectory was really well illustrated in those films to me. And I didn't feel that here.
Because there is no fall. He wins.
What I mean is, like, Mark Zuckerberg starts the film an unlikable asshole and ends the film an unlikable asshole. And that's fine. That's the correct way to portray him. But I don't feel like I got any other shades of who he was.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't much that got me emotionally invested in what was happening.
Okay.
It was watching a really nice performance of a really repellent character without the charm or the nuance of a Leonardo DiCaprio performance or a Daniel Day-Lewis performance. And I'm not trying to shit on Eisenberg here.
No, I think Eisenberg is great, but I also do agree with you that he, as Mark Zuckerberg, is less good than Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an unfair comparison. I don't know.
Yeah, I think those are two great performances, and one is better than the other.
The second genre of film, the
Yeah.
second subgenre of film, you referred to Shrek as Patient Zero.
Yeah.
This is Patient Zero for the corporate biopic that we have today. I think
You're right. You're
The
100%
Social
right.
Network leads directly to the Flamin' Hot Cheetos movie.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware that existed, but you're right.
And that is not the
Wait,
fault.
is that a real movie?
That is a real movie.
The Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Flamin'
movie?
Hot Cheetos movie. It was actually mostly made up, but they're portraying it as like this is the real story of the guy the janitor who worked at
I've heard the fake story.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were making a movie out of it.
Jerry-
That's dumb as shit.
Jerry Seinfeld's directorial debut this year was about the Pop-Tarts.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's
I
how
did know that.
That's how we get this, or that's
Yeah.
how, that's how we get those movies.
Yes.
And that is not the fault of the Social Network. However, much like Shrek,
You
I
hold
could-
it against it.
I can sort of see the seeds planted in this film to lead to that.
I don't disagree with you. It's interesting. I thought you were going to say this was Patient Zero for prestige, straight to streaming drama TV shows, because it definitely is stylistically.
You know, I could see them like stretching this out to like an 8 episode
but
series.
literally, like The Social Network, you watch this movie, and then it's like House of Cards on Netflix,
Yeah.
The Crown on Netflix,
I
any
think
other drama on Netflix. They all fucking look exactly like The Social Network because all of those people saw this movie and were like, let's do that for 8 episodes. Let's do a conflicted, powerful person who has like moral ambiguity. Let's have them navigate the systems of power for 10 episodes.
so. I think
in this exact color palette.
I think Patient Zero for that is Game of Thrones more than anything else.
Yeah, but that's period, so I feel like it's different.
Not aesthetically, but definitely thematically.
Yeah, you're right.
I think House of Cards, Succession, we're all just doing Game of Thrones in, boardrooms now.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the two things that I have against this movie, really.
Yeah.
I liked it. I had a better time with it this time.
That's good. I'm glad you liked it. I will take that you liked it, especially considering I thought that you disliked this movie before that.
And we'll get into my thoughts, I guess, more as we go along.
Yeah. Anyway, I had mentioned that I thought this was a banger opening scene, and then we went on a big thing.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a banger opening scene. I like Rooney Mara in this movie. She's not in very much of it, but both times she shows up, I'm like, hell yeah. And I like that it immediately jumpstarts again, like the trajectory of this film, just basically being like a girl dumps him and he turns into a supervillain.
Yeah.
I like the thing in this movie that is probably just an invention of the screenplay for narrative convenience, but it still works very well for me. Where every time he gets slighted by someone in this movie, he then like runs back to his dorm room and does more shit for the website. Right? Like she dumps him and he invents Face Mash. Then later on, someone like passes him a mean note in class. He goes and invents the wall or whatever.
Because he has to win.
Right. Yes. Because he can't win in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that he's going to beat all these people is online.
And he has a very, very silly run.
He
and
does.
I like his gay little run.
I kind of think that Jesse Eisenberg is great in this movie, but his physical performance is maybe better than his like facial and vocal acting performance. His physicality is so weird and uncanny in this movie. The part where they're having the like the drinking contest where the guys are programming and taking shots, and then like a couple of the guys win, and he's like, he does the welcome to Facebook and he shakes their hands. He shakes their hands so fucking weird. He shakes their hands like a little robot freak.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think Zuckerberg is a little robot freak in this movie.
Yeah.
And
to be clear, I have seen performances where he isn't a little robot freak. So he's definitely doing that for the movie.
I think that like that's maybe the correct way to take this character. I think there's a lot of subtlety in Eisenberg's physical performances and his facial expressions.
Yeah.
I think there's just he is just barreling through this script like a bullet train.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just give me a little bit more color here. Give me some color there. Don't be so Sorkin-y with this.
Yeah. But I kind of don't know if that's Sorkin though. Like, I don't subscribe to your whole theory of like Sorkin is standing over Fincher's shoulder directing the actors for him, because I'm like, Fincher has precedent of making characters in his movies like robotic weird little fucks who just kind of spew out the dialogue. Kevin Spacey in Seven, for example, right? He's like got dead fish eyes in that movie, right? And I sort of think I agree that the performance is a little bit like I'm rattling out all this shit and not really paying a lot of attention to how it lands. But I don't necessarily think that's a problem that stems from the script. I think it is a character decision that is informed by the directing and the performance, right? Because he doesn't care how his words affect people, so he just says them plainly, right? And he knows they're going to hurt people. It's not that he doesn't know, it's that he doesn't care, right? He does these little asides to Andrew Garfield a bunch of times in the movie where he's like, oh, congrats on making the Phoenix, but you're right, it probably was a diversity thing.
These put-downs that are supposed to sound like compliments.
Yes, and he does such a good job of making them sound like neither thing, right? Where he makes them sound like plain, like, scientific observations, right?
I think those are good.
Yeah.
I think those are really good deliveries from him. I think some of the longer, meatier monologues, I think he just barrels through them.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth on them. Here's the thing. I don't know that I see Mark Zuckerberg in this movie. I feel like I see Jesse Eisenberg. And with Andrew Garfield as Eduardo, I feel like I see Eduardo.
Right.
I don't feel like I see Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
Like it feels like the character is fully formed on screen, divorced from the actor playing them.
Gotcha. I don't want to derail us too long for talking about Eisenberg. So
I do want to do one more comment about Eisenberg.
Okay, yeah.
Have you seen Rick and Morty?
Like the first season, and that's it.
Do you know that face that Morty does, where his it's like a frown that he does, where his lips let go, like
yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg does that face so many times.
He does do that. It's true. He does do that face. He does do that.
He'd be a great live action Morty.
He would. Yeah, because he's
a little punchable,
great at being pathetic and annoying.
God.
And no offense to the man himself.
I like Jesse Eisenberg, and I have a lot of respect for him as an actor. He's also delivered one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my entire life, which is Lex Luthor in Batman v Superman.
Oh, okay. Which, to be fair, I haven't seen. But I've heard about it. I know that he pisses in a jar.
In a jar.
Yeah. Anyway, tune into our Batman v Superman episode for more on that, which, to be clear, does not currently exist. Yeah. So, we've talked about some performances. Let's just keep going here, because there's one other lead in this movie that we haven't really talked about yet, which is Armie Hammer. How do you feel about Armie Hammer in this movie? Both of him.
So first, right off the bat, the Winklevoss twins are fucking
each other.
They are showering together and fucking each other.
See, listener,
that is the
you
vibe.
Thought we were just doing like actual film criticism and analysis on this episode. No. We are talking about Armie Hammer fucking.
That is the vibe that this performance is giving off.
The Podmaster just appeared in the doorway to give a thumbs down. I believe that if Armie Hammer had an exact copy of himself, he would be fucking that person.
They are two bodies,
and
sharing...
also, you're right, Podmaster, also eating them. He would also be eating them.
Yeah, I don't know that the cannibal jokes always come up. I don't know if I get that. I know it's a thing.
He had like a little bit of a cannibal fetish that was outed in some leaked text messages and stuff. People lump that into the reasons why he is canceled. I kind of think that's unfair because if you never act on a cannibal fetish and you're basically just like, I'd like to chomp on them titties or whatever, or I'd like to grill up your thighs and eat them as burgers, right? If you're just saying that shit and it's with a consenting, but maybe potentially weirded out, other party, like, that's weird, but I don't think it should get you canceled. The credible sexual assault allegations are the things that I think are worthy of canceling him for. So, credibly accused of sexual assault, Armie Hammer. We don't endorse him as a human being, but we're talking about his performance in this movie.
I think it's a solid performance, but I don't feel like I get a ton of distinction between Cameron and Tyler.
Yeah,
which might be the point. But if that is the point, it reads very much like fucking David Cronenberg's Dead Ringers.
Isn't it kind of amazing, though, that the twin work in this is so good that
it's really well done.
He manages to have sexual chemistry with himself.
It's really well done, and the double that's playing, the other twin, from the back or whatever, is doing a very good job too.
I was looking for it this time because I was like, this is a movie from 2010. I know they did some of this stuff digitally. Some of it, it's literally like they just spliced the frame together.
Yeah.
Like they shot him in one chair and in the other chair and just spliced the frame together. And in some of them, they couldn't have done that. And they literally just CGI'd his face onto another guy's body. And I was looking because I was like, this is from 2010. I'm going to be able to see the seams. And I don't know about you, but I literally could never tell.
There are a couple scenes to me that felt slightly off, and I don't know if that's just like an uncanny valley thing.
Yeah.
But it's not a criticism against the movie. I think it is mostly very well done.
It's like, it is the kind of digital effects work that is like so I don't want to say unsung, because this movie did get a lot of credit for how amazing that is, but it's like potentially like underappreciated how hard it is to do digital work that is that like simple in terms of like not big and flashy is what I mean.
Yes.
Right. But also make it look good and seamless and not distract from the movie at all. Like especially when we're like adding in dead actors to Star Wars and Alien now, right? And it's like it looks like fucking dog shit and you can like smell it coming a mile away where you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is fucking awful. And then, like, you look at something like this where it's like, well, they put Armie Hammer's face on another guy's face and it looks fucking amazing. And this is from 14 years ago. So, yeah, I think it's pretty impressive. But,
yeah, I would agree.
And the performance itself, I think Armie Hammer's really funny in this movie. I laughed a lot watching The Social Network. I thought this movie was quite funny. And a lot of those laughs were from Armie Hammer. Because he has a lot of punchlines, but also it's a lot. His delivery is really good. Like the fucking when he pulls that knob off the door after they have the disappointing meeting with the fucking dean or whatever, and he's like, "Oops, broke your 153-year-old doorknob or whatever the fuck," and just tosses it on the lady's desk.
That dean, by the way, what a prick!
I love that guy. I love that performance. I love that scene so much because he's just like, oh man, when he's like he starts talking shit about them like to his secretary while they're in the room. I don't even remember what he says, but it's like it's fucking gold where he's like, hey, Cindy, can you remind me in 2 weeks that I don't give a fucking shit about this?
Oh yeah, he's like I think he says punch me to his secretary.
Yes.
As I written
punch
down.
me in the face. Yeah.
He's like the fucking dean in Animal House,
It
just
rocks.
like being an absolute shithead
And
to
he's
these
just
guys.
like the actual. I don't even think he's the dean. I think he's the president of Harvard. I think
Yeah,
he's
I wasn't
literally-
sure who he
yeah,
was.
Yeah. He's like
But
the
yeah.
university president of Harvard. And he's just like, get these fucking assholes out of here. I was doing my Sudoku. Just cannot be bothered to do his job. It rocks. Yeah. And I like all the stuff with the Winklevoss twins, where they're I like the rowing scene with the Hall of the Mountain King song
with
over it.
It kind of has an interesting camera effect where it sort of looks like it's like
It's like a higher frame rate.
higher
or
frame
something.
rate miniature sort of thing looking. I
Yeah.
don't know. It looks interesting. I was watching that scene. I'm like, this is visually interesting, and the music is really good. Do we need this in the movie? I don't know.
I kind of So I almost had that reaction too, but then the scene that follows it, where they came in a close second, and everyone is treating them like kind of coddling them about it and being like, you'll get him next time. It was a really good effort. The race was so close. And it's driving them fucking insane.
And then they find out that Facebook is taking off.
Yes.
Internationally.
I think the point of spending so much time on the race itself and shooting it with that like wild, like high frame rate effect and the big dramatic music. Cause it's just showing how much this failure has broken them. Not the failure in the race, but the failure with Zuckerberg.
Yeah, that was a bit of a moment where I was like, okay, I think I get it.
Yeah.
Fincher. Which is, I don't know, it's visual storytelling. It's like part of filmmaking, but I don't know if it totally worked for me.
Fincher is sometimes, I love his movies. Fincher is sometimes an like, okay, I get it, dude, director for me a little bit. There's definitely moments in Seven, especially toward the end, where I'm like, all right, I get it. We're spending so much time on what's in this box. I've already figured it out. I've also seen the movie before. Let's wrap this shit up, man. It's taking a while.
I just want Morgan Freeman to quote Hemingway. We can get the fuck out of here.
I don't need to see another cutaway shot of Brad Pitt crying, doing this, moving his gun down and then back up, which seems like it happens 8 times in that scene.
No, I love for me, it's Morgan Freeman opening the box and like looking around really like furtively.
You're like, oh shit.
Nobody
else saw that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit too heavy of a spice isn't something that Fincher is immune to in his movies, but
yeah.
Anyway.
I think all of the Harvard stuff is really good at illustrating a theme in this movie, which is this type of wealth and power and privilege inherently corrupts people, inherently corrupts young men.
Yeah.
And drives them to become little freaks. And if it wasn't Zuckerberg, it was going to be any one of these other guys.
Right.
It's a similar way that I feel to American Psycho, where Patrick Bateman isn't the American Psycho. They're all American Psychos.
Right. They're all the American Psycho.
And all of his Wall Street cronies are up to the same kind of shit that he is.
What if the American Psycho was the friends we made along the way?
I guess.
What if the real American Psycho was inside you all along?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I get what you're saying.
So I think this stuff is probably the most effective point of the film for me, is a lot of this stuff towards the beginning.
Yeah. I do really like the first act of this movie, like before they go to, basically before Sean Parker enters the picture. I don't necessarily know if it's my favorite part of the movie, but it just feels like a very strong, it's a strong opening.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I like him getting pissed off by something that happens that doesn't go his way. You know, Wardo gets into the Phoenix, Facebook gets bigger, fucking, he sees his ex-girlfriend out at dinner and tries to talk to her, and she basically tells him to fuck off. Oh, time to fucking work on Facebook more.
I made Facebook. Yeah, cool. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. My favorite is
no.
My favorite is when he's talking to, I don't remember who he's talking to, but somebody is like, people don't walk around wearing a big sign that says I'm single or whatever. And he's like, he just like drops everything and runs away, being like, I have to invent the relationship status. All that shit is very fun.
Yeah.
It's occasionally like a little, to your point, a little like biopic-y and silly, right? Where it's like, oh yes, how convenient that we're just seeing the moment where he's like, I have ding, light bulb over my head, I invented relationship status. But I think the pacing of the movie helps that stuff not stick out too absurdly to me, because it's like it happens and then we're just on to the next thing.
I think the pacing of the opening act of the film and into the second act, so I guess the first hour, would be an easier way to say that.
Yeah. The first half even of this roughly 2-hour film.
Yeah. I think that's what's strong about this, because it has the pacing and the feeling of a Wolf of Wall Street type movie where we are seeing the rise. But
and just to shout out the score again, I feel like the
Yeah.
score is helping with that pacing, because it does feel like the engine underneath it just keeping us going.
And another thing that like threw me off the first time watching this was the flash forwards to the
courtroom stuff.
The courtroom
Or
stuff.
It's technically like arbitration stuff.
Yeah,
or
like
whatever,
the
but-
lawsuits
right.
that he's
Yeah,
dealing
yeah.
with. Here it worked for me more on this watch.
Yeah.
But I think they're really well integrated into this first half of the film.
Yeah, I really like it too. I especially like that because Fincher does that thing that he does in a lot of his movies where he dispenses more information than you actually have the ability to process, given how much you know
Right.
currently, and then like he'll give you the context later. And you know, it's not totally Fincher, it's also Sorkin doing that, because Sorkin wrote the script. But I feel like through those legal scenes, you get context for like the next 20 minutes of shit you're gonna see, which is very fun. And then every once in a while we'll check in with the legal stuff after we've gotten context, and they'll like put a little button on it, which they do with the chicken thing, which I really like.
I like when one of the lawyers is reading over like a transcript of like emails that Zuckerberg sent back to the Winklevosses and about, you know, not being able to meet to set up Harvard Connection
Yeah.
over footage of him working on Facebook in montage.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those where there's so much detail in what's being said, but like you don't really need to pay super close attention to it. You're just getting the big picture of it.
It boils down to he agreed to build this site for these rich fucks. He decided, nah, I'm not going to do that. I have a better idea that is incredibly similar to their idea, and then just ignored their emails and built Facebook. Which is like ice cold. Like, you do not have to hand it to Mark Zuckerberg by any stretch of the imagination, but it is kind of funny that these like two super rich fucking jacked rowing jocks were like, hey nerd, build us a website, and he was like, okay, and then just stole their idea and gave him the finger. Like, it's the thing about this movie where it's like, it doesn't make you like him, but it makes you understand him. Because it's like, I was like a nerdy loser kid when I was in like high school. Like, I wasn't like a jock or popular or whatever. Like, and given the opportunity, if some jock was like, hey, fucking, I have this idea and you have to do it for me because you're smart. Given the opportunity, would I have stolen that guy's idea and never talked to him again? Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? It's a relatable thing. And it's almost something that you're rooting for at that phase in the movie because it hasn't turned into what it will be yet, right?
And see, not me.
Yeah.
You know, and
I don't know. I think him telling the Winklevoss twins, not telling them, but implying that they should get fucked by just not answering their emails is pretty baller.
It's funny. It's
Yeah.
definitely funny.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not. I'm not rooting for him in the way that I'm rooting for like Jordan Belfort.
Yeah.
I don't know why
yeah.
I keep coming back to that one. I think that movie's just.
It is a pretty similar movie though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think, and again, this is intentional, and it's not like really a knock against the movie. It's just the level that I relate to this film emotionally.
Yeah.
He's still just a weird freak the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's like he goes to the Bill Gates lecture.
Yeah.
And a couple people recognize him, and then he uses the fact that he made Facebook to make out with this chick in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I am popular and confident, and a girl touched my penis, so I'm going to go tell Erica to go fuck herself.
Yeah. Except he doesn't tell Erica to go fuck
Yeah,
herself.
it's like
He
he just tries to...
He's like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And she's like, no, you're bothering me and I'm with my
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
Go away. Yeah. But and to be fair, like even the thing where he makes out with the girl who they met at the lecture, like that's Wardo's doing. Like he does not even successfully he doesn't successfully flirt with a girl. Wardo flirts with two girls and he's just also there. So he like gets the benefit of that, which is like maybe a opening for me to talk about a thing that I don't really love about this movie that much, which is its depiction of women, which I do think
You mean the Lifetime original movie happening off screen, which is Eduardo's relationship with this woman that he meets at the Bill Gates lecture?
It is highly unfortunate that Wardo's girlfriend, who has a name that I straight up don't remember, and I blame the movie for that. It is unfortunate that she is depicted pretty much universally as either a sex object or a raving psycho. It's like, okay, great. Love to see women in movies, I guess. And here's the thing. I can sort of rationalize what this movie is doing with its depiction of women, because the lens through which we are viewing this entire story is the viewpoint of misogynistic men.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, yes, of course women aren't afforded agency in this story. The people telling this story, literally in the courtroom scenes, are a bunch of dudes who hate women, right? So it's like, yeah, sure. At the same time, I'm like, that's a narrative explanation. It's maybe not like a good reason for making your movie sort of explicitly misogynistic. It's not a thing that I like really have a problem with in this movie, but it is definitely something I notice watching this movie.
I think Erica brings things back down to earth.
Yes, if she was maybe in the movie a little bit more, that would help, but she's
True.
literally only in 2
But
scenes.
it's like I don't know what else she could have contributed to the film.
Yeah.
I think Rooney Mara does, and to be fair, Sorkin's writing for the character.
Yeah.
I think in those 2 scenes that she's in, it does a really good job establishing this character and her perspective on things.
Yeah.
And being like, no, she's right. He's an asshole and a weird little freak.
Yeah. Rashida Jones kind of takes her place later in the movie.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
She's the intern.
Lawyer. The intern at the law firm who's like on his legal team.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rashida Jones is sort of the other female viewpoint where it's like she sees through this guy.
Yeah, I also wonder if that ending, because I do like the ending, which I guess we'll get to eventually, but I'm wondering how much she kind of gives him an out with this, where she treats him a little bit more sympathetically than like Rooney Mara does, and I don't know if that's what.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We've been bouncing around. Let's actually put a pin in that. Because we should talk about other stuff that we want to talk about. And we'll circle back around to the ending. We're not going in chronological order, but let's put a pin in that because I do have a take on that. But yeah, like that's kind of my biggest issue with the movie, and it kind of surfaces the most around the middle when Sean Parker gets introduced. Because as soon as Sean Parker's there, there's just like women in their underwear walking around. Zuck invents Facebook at Harvard with Wardo, blows off the Winklevi, right? And then like basically the next bit is like he meets Sean Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Because they expand to like all the different schools. By the way, when one of my favorite moments in this movie to just use as a clip with no context is when I think the character's name is Divya. He's the guy who's helping the Winklevi with their site. By the way, I think that guy's great in this movie.
Oh, I would agree. I think he's a really good performance.
I don't even know the actor's name. He's also in The Handmaid's Tale, and he's great in that too. But one of my favorite clips of this movie with just no context is Divya like bursts into the room like he just like ran a mile to get there and yells, "He's expanding!" Which I'm like, yes, me every time I'm on a bulk. my fucking elastic waistband when it sees me reach for my 8th beer.
Well, I like
he's expanding
when after he has the second conversation with Erica and she tells him to fuck off, and Eduardo is like, "Hey, good job for apologizing to her."
Oh, and he's like, "You apologized, right?"
And then Eisenberg turns to him and he goes, "We have to expand." like he's gonna go build the fucking Death Star or something.
Yes. Yeah, that is like one of those full-on supervillain moments from him where he's like, and the thing is she doesn't
proceed to phase 2.
She doesn't even tell him to fuck off.
Yeah,
She's so much more polite than that, which makes it way more infuriating for him.
Right.
She
just doesn't give him
Yeah.
any chance to engage.
Right. Because if she said fuck off, he would think of that as a victory, like guys like that do.
Yeah.
Right? He would have been like, "Oh, I got a reaction out of her. She's emotionally invested." And instead, she's basically like, can you please leave me alone? I'm with my friends. I don't want to be, she says, I don't want to be rude to my friends.
Mhm.
Right. And that's when he's like, I have to fucking build the Facebook. I have to take over the world with a website.
Farmville is the future.
I'll show her. Pretty soon you're gonna need to download a whole separate app for DMs. So Sean Parker shows up and it's Justin Timberlake. His character introduction is funny because he's freshly fucked.
Yeah.
And then he's acting like he doesn't even know this girl's name. But then when she starts giving shit about it, he rattles off like a ton of facts about her. Which I think is very funny. I don't know anything about the actual Sean Parker other than like he invented Napster and then got sued and then was a founding member of Facebook. Right. So like basically all just stuff that's in this movie. So any actual real life similarity to the actual dude aside, this character in this movie to me is very fun and interesting. And I already talked about how I like the performance and how I think Timberlake is playing this the whole time. But it's like this guy is a sad nerd loser who has gotten enough fame and attention and success to confidently project that he is some kind of like alpha Chad, right?
Yeah.
But he isn't. He's a sad loser dork, right? And like the ending of the movie where he gets busted at the party, like shows that pretty well, I think. But I feel like it's there the entire time, which I just love about this character in this performance.
I like his introduction and the way he becomes the devil on Zuckerberg's shoulder.
Yeah.
To Eduardo's angel, I guess, because Eduardo is just as, I think, morally gray as every other character in this film.
Yep.
But he feels like a three-dimensional, well-rounded human being.
And he also crucially has ethics.
Yes.
Right? When he hears about Zuckerberg stealing the idea from the Winklevi, he has a problem with it. He's like, did we steal their idea? Because that's fucked up, right? And then he's like trying to like go pound pavement in New York to get like legitimate ad partners instead of doing the Zuckerberg model of we'll get everybody in the world using it and then we'll add ads and monetize so that we don't drive anybody away. Right? So he's like trying to do things in like the ethical, like upstanding businessman sort of way, which doesn't make him like unilaterally good, but at least he like has recognizable morals, you know?
Yeah. And when Sean Parker shows up, you know, it seems like Mark Zuckerberg thinks when this guy's off screen, he's banging supermodels and like skydiving.
One of my favorite parts of Jesse Eisenberg's performance is how he looks at Justin Timberlake
in
this movie.
He wants to fuck him.
He wants to fuck him. He wants to be him.
Yeah.
Right? He also gets so much satisfaction from talking down at him towards the end of the movie.
Well, yeah, because by the end of the movie,
yeah,
he feels like he has become him.
Yes.
He's become Sean Parker.
Right. So he's basically like, oh, this guy has no power over me anymore.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm above him. Right.
Yeah. I've got this, you know, these swanky new offices with all of these new programmers, and I got business cards that say I'm the CEO, bitch.
Yes. Which was Sean Parker's idea.
Yeah. And now I've made it, and the student has become the master.
Yes. I like when they go out to dinner with Sean Parker and he orders them all appletinis. He like asks Wardo's girlfriend,
yeah, that's fun,
what she wants to drink, and she's like, appletini, and all of them are underage, but because they're with him, like nobody gets carded, so she orders like what a 19-year-old would order, which is an appletini. And then they're just all, and I love that as they're talking and there's like a voiceover from Wardo in like the legal proceedings explaining everything. I like that it's just like as the night transitions, there's just more and more appletini glasses on the table, and like you see the waiter coming by with another round of appletinis, and I was like, they're gonna have such bad hangovers tomorrow. That amount of booze and sugar, I'd be laid out for 36 hours. after 6 Appletinis or whatever these people are drinking.
I've never had an Appletini.
It's like a sweet apple tasting drink in a martini glass.
Sounds like it'd be tasty.
It's fine. They're very sweet in my experience, which is limited. Haven't had a lot.
I remember it being a joke in Scrubs. I think JD. Right?
Sure. I don't know. I haven't watched
Zach Braff.
Scrubs. I think JD.
I think his favorite drink is an Appletini, and
You
they
sounded
use
like
that
you
as
were having a full-on crisis for a second.
I've kind of been having a full-on crisis for this whole episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, the social network.
The social network. Appletinis. Yeah, I like the scene. I love when Justin Timberlake says $1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? And Andrew Garfield says, you. And then he goes, no. And we cut to the courtroom. And Andrew Garfield says $1 billion, which is a great. It's it's iconic for a reason.
Yeah,
it's a great moment. I love the edit there.
I want to talk about the hacking competition.
Yeah,
they should broadcast drunk hacking on like one of the latter ESPN channels. Like ESPN 8 the Ocho from Dodgeball.
Yeah.
Like I would watch drunk hacking, I think.
Yeah, wouldn't that basically be the same experience as just like watching competitive gaming? Just like a bunch of nerds frantically typing at keyboards?
I guess so.
But in this case they're drunk, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I imagine competitive gamers probably are not.
Yeah.
In order to stay sharp. Yeah, competitive drunk hacking seems, first of all, like an insane way to get a job, which is what happens in this movie. Just like drink a bunch of shots and white hat hack until you're an employee of Facebook.
Well, that is part of the point, is that he couldn't get into the fraternities. He's created his own fraternity.
Yeah,
and
right,
these are just drunk, vulgar bros partying.
Yeah,
they just happen to know a lot about computers.
They know how to code because they can't get laid.
Yeah,
like they are as misogynistic and as shallow as the dudes at the Phoenix. It's just like these guys can't get laid, so they learned how to code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like that. I like that scene too. The house when Zuck moves to California, to be closer to Sean Parker and to like open up a Facebook office and everything. The house that they're living in, first of all, that place smells so bad. I guarantee. Because those guys are not showering regularly. They're all dudes. Everybody's ripping farts all the time.
It's monster Chinese takeout farts and
bong, just old bong water.
Yeah.
Gosh. And then they have like these girls there who are like playing video games and smoking bongs the whole time. They got to get high just so that they can tolerate the stench. It is funny that there's like a guy in the corner like writing code for Facebook. And there's like a girl in her underwear like 2 feet behind him, like playing Mario Kart or whatever the fuck.
My recommendation to any male presenting person listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
After you get out of college.
Yeah.
Live with girls at least once.
Yeah.
At least be in a house with a couple girls in them.
Yeah.
In it, because
it'll teach you how to do dishes.
Oh yeah, most of my roommates after college were women, and it is a totally different experience.
Yeah,
and they certainly. I mean, my house still wasn't very clean, but it was not, a fucking den of hedonism.
Yeah,
like the Facebook
and that's not even
houses.
That's not even just because you left the cleaning up to your female roommates.
I cleaned some. Having
a woman present in the household a lot of the time will make you be like, oh shit, I gotta pull my act together.
Yeah. I have to confine.
She's so much more on top of her shit than me, and it's making me look bad.
I have to confine my chaos to my bedroom.
Right.
And I cannot let it spread to the rest of the house.
Right.
If I got the smelly laundry in my bedroom, that's fine. Yeah. But when I am out of my bedroom, I need to be clean and presentable and pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Unlike the den of scum and villainy that is the Facebook house. Wardo comes back from New York to the Facebook house and is like, yo, I'm getting all these advertisers, and then he like finds out that Sean Parker is living there and shit. So that's like sort of, we've seen their relationship kind of start to fracture and start to fall apart. Also around here, it might be a little bit before that, is the chicken thing, which I've mentioned twice, and I just do need to talk about because it's the funniest part of this
Go
movie.
ahead and hone in on the chicken.
Yeah, there's not a lot to say about it. I just like that it's in the movie. I like that this is real and it actually happened, which is just Wardo Saverin had a chicken to take care of, and he fed it chicken, and someone put a story about it in the Harvard newspaper and accused him of animal abuse for feeding a chicken. And then I fucking love Andrew Garfield's line when they're talking about it, where he's like, because there's a thing with marlins and trout earlier that when Justin Timberlake is like spouting all this bullshit, and Andrew Garfield goes, "Don't the fish eat the other fish, the marlins and the trout?" And it's very funny. It's a good line delivery, and I like it a lot.
Yeah,
that's all I wanted to say about it. I just
cool.
Just really like it. And yeah, so like their relationship's like a little bit more fractured at this point. Like he's not as like in or whatever. And you know, like Facebook is like getting bigger. It's getting outside of the universities and stuff.
We also got the scene where we catch up with his insane girlfriend, and he.
Yeah.
Again, there's another movie happening off screen that is like rated R and directed by Joel Schumacher or Paul Verhoeven or something, which is the R-rated erotic thriller called Eduardo's Sex Life.
Psychosexual thriller where she's basic instincting him or whatever.
When she burned this fucking necktie, I'm like, Jesus. Or the scarf that he gets her.
Yes.
It's a scarf.
She puts it in the trash. She lights it on fire, puts it in the trash can, and then knocks the flaming trash can over on his bed, which is fucking insane. That is psycho shit. Talk about American Psycho.
Yeah. That might be one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a good scene. And I like him fucking like panicking and putting it out while he's on the phone with Mark, trying to basically stay involved in the company. Yeah.
And then he's like,
his life's just falling apart.
Then he's also like, I'm breaking up with you. And I'm like, dude, don't say that. What you need to do is pack up, leave town, change your identity.
Yes.
Maybe buy a gun.
Yes. And whatever you do, don't make a Facebook account. She'll find it. She's on there. Yeah. Yes. I like that scene too. So then we interspersed here is like more legal stuff. We do sort of wrap up the Winklevoss thing with around here them losing their rowing race, and hearing that Zuck is taking the site even bigger, and they're basically like, yeah, we're finally gonna sue because one of the two twins, they're Tyler and Cameron, and fuck me if I know which one's which.
I don't think the movie cares.
Yeah. It kind of doesn't, but one of them has been more reticent to sue. I like the scene earlier where he's like, you guys are going to make fun of me if I say the reason why I don't want to sue him. And they're like, fucking try us. And he's like, well, we're gentlemen of Harvard, and that's not what gentlemen do.
Boo, fuck you, nerd.
Divya's like, yeah, that was really fucking stupid. I'm sorry, I would rather have millions of dollars than my honor or whatever. But yeah. So eventually, like, that twin is swayed, and they like that starts their lawsuit, which basically catches them up to the present or whatever. And then, we have the scene where Wardo like comes to the Facebook offices and has been, not fired, but quietly, softly let go.
He's been screwed out of his shares.
Yeah.
Because he was gonna have like a 30% share. And then at some point there was an increase in renegotiation, and his shares reduced to like a 0.0% type of deal.
Yeah.
So he's not coming back for 30%. He's coming back for everything.
You better lawyer up, asshole. It's such Andrew Garfield is so fucking good.
He's really good. I think he's the best performance in the movie, probably.
I think I agree with that. I like
and Rooney Mara. I love Rooney Mara too, but
it's a much. There's a lot more of Garfield.
Sure.
I like Eisenberg a lot in this movie, but I think I like Garfield more. And I think I like Garfield even more than Timberlake, who's my other fave, I think, in this movie. Because I really fuck with what he's doing too. But yeah, and I love them talking about that in the legal setting, in like the flash forward, where the lawyer is asking Wardo's lawyer is asking him, how much was Mark Zuckerberg's shares reduced, and he's like, it wasn't. How much were Dustin Moskowitz's reduced by? It wasn't. How much was Sean Parker's reduced by? It wasn't. It's just it's so good and tense, and they like the Sorkin of it all is less rapid fire there. They're like letting it breathe a little bit more. So you're just seeing Garfield like simmering while he's doing that. And I really fuck with that.
Yeah.
It kind of is the climax of the movie too.
Sure.
Because the party shit where Sean Parker gets busted happens after that, but that's a little bit more like a denouement.
Yeah.
And so this really is kind of like the big climax of the movie is just Andrew Garfield being like, it wasn't, right? And then they ask him about his shares, and he's like, yeah, I got fucking 0.001% or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. During the party scene, I just want to call out an actress in this film, Caitlin Gerard, who is I think she's the one when the cops bust into the room where Sean Parker's doing coke.
Yeah.
She was earlier in the film too, in the scene in the offices. But she's the one who was like underage.
Yeah.
Great actress. She's in Zack Stone is Gonna Be Famous, which is a show that Bo Burnham had on MTV for one season. That is one of the best things he has ever done artistically, and one of the most prophetic shows in recent memory.
Hell yeah.
It came out in like the end of the 2000s, like 2009, 2010 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it is, you watch that show, and that is like, and look at the last 14 years of the internet and social media. A great show, highly recommended. Caitlin Gerard is great in that show.
So she was in two highly prophetic things about the internet.
Yes.
Because as much as this movie is rehashing stuff that already happened with social media, a lot of it is just like foretelling what was even still to come in 2010. Right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot in this movie, especially towards the end here, where you're seeing how much these guys are just sad, flawed idiots, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, them being in control of the flow of all the information that we all consume is like a thing that this movie is talking about, but like the movie could not possibly have known how right it was to raise that theme, right? Because in 2010, it was like, Obama was still in office. We had it comparatively good.
Yeah, I mean, every time he's talking, I said this in my Letterboxd review, every time he's talking about how he gets on his high horse about Facebook never having ads because Facebook has to be cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, Facebook has ads now, and
Yeah.
it's been, chopped up by AI, and like how much Zuckerberg has stooped to the the traditional inherent evils of corporate capitalism that it at least in this movie he's sort of portrayed as like rebelling against in the beginning of the film.
Right. Yeah, because ultimately, and I think this is sort of a level that the movie is operating on thematically. Ultimately, he only wants to break the rules to get in, right? The whole thing in the movie as to why he makes Facebook isn't just getting dumped by a girl. It's also not getting into the Phoenix, the super exclusive frat, right? He wants to party with the elites. He wants to be respected by men who he views as high status, right? And he only wants to break their rules to get into the party. And then once he's in the party, he's totally fine playing by the same rules as all the other rich people.
Yeah.
Right? He just wants to get there.
And that's the same ideology that's reflected in, I keep wanting to call him Sean Napster.
Yeah.
But Sean Parker.
Yeah. Sean Napster.
because he talks about how he's in that club scene where the music is so overpowering that they're actually like shouting over each other.
Yeah, which is a great thing that Fincher loves to do.
Yeah.
He also does that in Mindhunter.
I didn't like that the first time I saw the movie.
Oh, I love it.
That was the point where I was like, all right, I'm just fucking done with this shit. Can we end this movie?
Yeah.
This time I watched it, I was like, this is actually really well done.
Yeah.
But that's the philosophy that Sean expresses, is like, he started Napster to try to impress a girl.
Yep.
And the guy who started Victoria's Secret started it for his wife,
Yep.
like it's something inherent to this type of mindset that all these guys are sharing, it to, become elites and become
Right.
successful.
And if you don't have the money, fake it. Put on your best performance for your venture capitalists, right? And lie until you have money, right? Or cheat until you have money, or steal until you have money. And then once you have enough money, you can deal with the consequences of all of those things that you did with all the money that you made,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is literally exactly what he does in the movie. Yeah. And so, Sean gets busted at this party. I love when when the cops come into the room where they've all been doing like coke off of each other's stomachs and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the cop's like, "How old are you?" And the kid's like, 21. And he goes down the line and asks each of them, and they're all like 21, 21, 21. It's a very funny joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. And I like Zuckerberg getting the call from him.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things he says is like he's like, "How old are they?" or "How old is she?" or something, is like one of the first things that he says. And I'm like, oh, so he knows, and he has been voluntarily associating himself with this guy anyway, which like is sort of a thing here towards the end of the movie that reinforces how shitty he is, where he can just like excuse this guy fucking like hanging around and giving drugs to underage girls, right? Because that's my boy Sean. He's really cool. He's a good hang. It doesn't matter that he's fucking lurking around high schools, But then also, this is sort of where you see him get a little bit of that rush from basically telling Sean that he's fucked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, oh, cool. He dug his own grave, and now it's just me. Now it's the Mark Zuckerberg show.
Yeah.
Lucky me, right?
Yeah. It's him setting up all these people to benefit him,
Yeah.
and help him get to where he needs to be. And as soon as they're not useful to him, he can, take them out like they're, Leon Trotsky or I don't know. I don't know why I went to Stalin killing Trotsky.
I do think the movie does plant the idea in your head that it's possible that Zuck called the cops and got that party busted, because they specifically reference with the chicken thing. When Wardo and him are having their blowout fight, he says, "You planted that story about the chicken and the crimson, didn't you?"
Yeah,
right?
because it all goes back. There's a suggestion that it all goes back to Wardo getting into the Phoenix.
Yes. And so I think the movie is opening the door for you to interpret that party getting busted as like, yeah, he might have called those cops too.
Yeah, because he's a supervillain.
Right, exactly. Because this is a movie about a nerd turning into a supervillain.
Yeah.
And then Rashida Jones at the very end of the movie, this is the thing we put a pin in.
Yes.
Has a little moment with him again. And she says the iconic line, which is, "You're not an asshole, Mark. You're just trying so hard to be." Right? And he goes on Erica Albright's Facebook page and requests her and refreshes the page a million times.
That part of the ending.
Yeah.
Requesting our Erica on Facebook.
Yeah.
I liked that the first time that I saw the movie.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, that's a great ending, and
Yes.
that
I really
that
like
arc
that
of the
ending.
film is really well done.
And I like that it puts all of the stuff about how the legal cases ended like up over that frame as he's just refreshing and refreshing and refreshing. So you're seeing like, the Winklevoss twins got X amount of money in a settlement. Eduardo Saverin, he settled for an undisclosed amount and his name was restored to the masthead. Facebook is now worth $25 billion. And it's just this sad, pathetic dork-ass loser.
Mark Zuckerberg is the youngest billionaire in the world, and he's still sitting on the website that he created, trying to get to see if the girl that he likes will give him validation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really, really solid ending.
Beautiful ending. What did you want to say about the you're not an asshole, Mark?
I don't know. I wonder if she's giving him too much of an out, because earlier in the movie we get the sense that she's like impressed by him. I think she's not letting on that she's maybe has a little bit more knowledge about the case than he thinks she does.
Yeah.
And of course at the end of the movie he like asks her if she wants to go to dinner, or grab a bite to eat or whatever.
Yeah. Although I thought she asked him and he said no.
No, he
oh, you're right.
At the end of the movie, he's like, "All you've had all day is that salad. You want to grab a bite?"
You're right.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very clearly like he's trying to make a move on her.
Yes, you're right.
But I don't know if
I was conflating it with earlier when she offers to share her salad with him, and he says no.
Yeah,
but yeah. Anyway.
I don't know if she I don't know if she reprimands him enough. I don't know what I want, but like I'm a little conflicted about her character, but I think her performance is good.
Yeah.
But she's the other woman in this movie, other than Rooney Mara, who is given a little bit more dimension and isn't portrayed so misogynistically.
Yeah.
Misogynistic. I am tired.
It is a late record for us. The thing I wanted to say about that line, because I told you I had a take, is it took me several viewings to sort of crack what I think that means, because like on its surface it sounds like she's saying, you're not that bad of a guy, I don't know why you want everybody to think you are.
That's sort of what it feels like to me,
right?
Yes.
But after several viewings of this movie, maybe like the last time I saw it and also this one, the thing I get away from that more is pity. She pities him, which I think is the emotion that Mark Zuckerberg would be most infuriated by, right? But I don't think he picks up on that it's pity. I think she's saying, like, it is so much more sad than actually being an asshole to idolize and imitate assholes when you aren't one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're the guy, you want to be Sean Parker, a true asshole. You're not even Sean Parker, a true asshole. You have the ability to like be a decent person, and you are consciously making the choice to instead emulate assholes, right? So that's kind of how that line landed for me on my most recent watches with this movie, and I really think it lands hard as the last line of the movie for me, with that sort of like lens applied to it. That's what I get away from it.
Okay.
You know.
I think that's a very good interpretation of that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or should we wrap this shit up?
We should probably wrap it up. I mean, I can't really think of much in the movie that we haven't touched on. So yeah, we can just do our final thoughts.
Okay.
Is it my turn to ask you?
I don't give a shit.
All right, David, is The Social Network the greatest movie ever made?
Negatory, Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I figured you would say. I didn't think you liked it that much.
I don't dislike this movie on this watch. I did genuinely enjoy my time with it.
Yeah.
I think it is very well made on Fincher's part. The script has its ups and downs for me, but I couldn't do better than Sorkin. So like, he gets some really great scenes out of this and really great dialogue exchanges between these characters, and I think the performances are good. And the pacing is really, really well done, and it taps into some interesting themes. I wish it dug deeper, and I think that's my issue with this film, is that it definitely has a message, and it has a theme. It has things that it wants you to get out of this movie. I just wish it explored those a little bit more and pulled them apart in regards to toxic masculinity, in regards to wealth and privilege, in regards to capitalism. I just wish it got into the nitty-gritty of that stuff a little bit more, because at the end of the day, it does feel a little safe in its treatment of its characters and the story that's being told. And it's also just a very well-made movie that I don't have a lot of emotional investment in. It's something that I can recognize from a distance, looks pretty good, and is edited very well, but it doesn't excite me or stir a lot of emotions in me. And towards the second half of this movie, I was starting to feel it drag a bit.
Yeah.
For me personally, it's 2 hours. It's not like it's too long, but maintaining that investment, and that's a me thing. That's not the movie's problem. That's a me thing. So I did like it. I like it. I think it is a good film. And maybe on rewatches in the future, I'll have more to reflect on with it and have more to engage with. But on this viewing, it is not one of my favorite Fincher films, nor is it the greatest movie ever made.
Fair enough.
Justice, is The Social Network the greatest movie ever made?
David, you better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm going to sue you for slandering the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah, well, I got business cards that say I'm the podcast host, bitch.
Co-host. My name's still on the map.
But I introduce the show, and I get to inject all the goofy bits to throw you off at the beginning.
That's true. I don't know what
which
you're talking about.
I didn't
Wada was
do.
just here.
You didn't do that
happen
this today. Didn't happen today. Wada was just here recording a covers album, I
yes.
guess.
David, yes. Social Network is the greatest movie ever made. I picked this movie because I love it so much. It is my second favorite David Fincher film currently, right behind Zodiac. Yep.
As long as Zodiac's above it, I think I can agree with that.
Yeah, Zodiac is number one for me, but The Social Network is number two. I really love this movie. I severely fuck with it. One of the things that I fuck with the most about it, one of my favorite kinds of movie, are movies about masculinity being a prison that traps society within it, both men and women, right? I like movies that explore how the construct of masculinity makes everyone's life worse. And I do think that this movie is operating adequately on that level for me personally. I know you said you wished it went deeper with that. I personally really fuck with how much this movie is definitively saying that. Through some of the editing choices, through definitely like the performances. Like I get that a lot with Justin Timberlake's character, where he's performing this braggadocious, bravado machismo that he doesn't seem to genuinely possess, right? And even with the Winklevi, right?
Is it with the grammatically correct pronunciation that be Winklevi?
I think it's Winklevosses, but I say Winklevi because
when Zuckerberg says it, I was like, all right, go fuck yourself.
That's also maybe the
dork.
That's also maybe the moment of the movie where he has the most character in a line delivery, where he's like, the Winklevi. He says it like so sassy. But yeah, even with their characters, it's like they are so obsessed with winning and being there first and pleasing daddy, right? Because they have bought into this lie that men have to beat other men, right? That you have to win the fucking rowing competition. I love, by the way, that in the stats at the end, it specifically calls out that they came in 6th at the Olympics. Which I feel like is a dig at them, given how they're portrayed in the movie. But it's like, yeah, all that shit, right? Wrapped up in here about how when you pursue the traditional idea of masculinity and the ideas of success and self-worth that are wrapped up in that construct, it is not only bad for your happiness, which I think this movie is saying, because the end of the movie shows that Mark Zuckerberg is patently unhappy, right? That's kind of what the point of the last bit of the movie is. Also, it is bad for society and the world and everyone around you, right? When you build Facebook because toxic masculinity has been entrenched so deeply in you that it's inseparable from your identity, Facebook ends up being bad. Right? And that's a thematic level that I fucking vibe with hard in this movie. And I also think it's beautiful. One of my favorite soundtracks in a movie ever. And I think the pacing and the editing is great. And I love the colors. And it's the greatest movie ever made. Made by a great filmmaker who I love, David Fincher.
Might I recommend the film Fight Club?
I do also like Fight Club. To be fair, I don't dislike any Fincher movie I've seen.
I only dislike Alien 3, and that's not his fault.
I haven't seen that one. Yeah, I heard there's the extended cut that's good.
I've seen the extended cut once, and it did not change my opinion on the film dramatically,
Fair
but
enough.
most people have reclaimed Alien 3 anyway. It's kind of the Season of the Witch, Exorcist 3 of the Alien franchise.
Yeah, I've seen
Anyways,
that.
that's neither here nor there. We'll cover that in a couple years for Alien Day.
Yeah.
But, okay, that is your opinion, and I'm glad that you enjoy this film.
My opinion.
This is one that, like, I wish I liked more.
Yeah.
Because everyone else loves it, and I wish I saw what everyone else saw in this film, I guess.
Yeah.
But I did like it a lot more in this viewing than I did the first time.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, because if you came in here just like fully on the hate train for The Social Network, this episode would have been much harder for people to listen to.
Facebook. It's fucking stupid.
I don't like social media. It's like, yeah, neither do I. That's the fucking point. Anyway, I don't have a Facebook anymore.
When are they gonna make the Twitter movie?
I deleted it. Oh god. Just a movie about the first half or first 3 quarters is just about Jack Twitter going off and doing his fucking psilocybin retreats, and his he was doing like sweat lodges and shit and having vision quests in the desert or whatever, and then he just sold that website to a Nazi, didn't he?
Yeah. Twitter was a paradise where you could tell people to kill themselves without fear of repercussions.
And now it's that, but also people are saying the N-word.
And you get in trouble for using the word cisgender.
Yeah.
Because it's run by a South African con artist and Nazi, and I hope he
redacted.
Fuck. That's The Social Network.
If you made a Twitter movie, you'd have to call it X the movie.
X the movie. It'd be 140 characters. It's a good title.
Yeah. All right.
Next week, I don't know if you know this.
What are we talking about next week, David?
Next week, we're watching we had a listener request.
Oh.
From our friend Isaac.
Sick.
He requested that we cover the 2009 stop-motion animated film Mary and Max.
Okay.
Which is an animated film for adults.
Cool.
Unlike on Twitter, when people say animation isn't just for kids, it's for adults, and then they post a bunch of kids' movies.
Yeah.
Apparently, this deals with a lot of mature subject matter.
Cool.
I don't know anything about this movie other than that.
I've literally never heard of it, but I'm excited to watch a stop-motion animated film for adults.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Isaac sent us a recommendation.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So that's going to happen next week.
Cool.
In the meantime, leave us a review on social media. Thanks to God Emperor Zuck for inventing that.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, for making the success of our creative endeavor entirely contingent upon engagement.
And tell your friends about the show and all that shit. Until then, we love you so much, and as always, later dipshits.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Greatest Movie Ever Made. Please remember to leave us a rating and a review, and to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. We appreciate you supporting the show and spreading the word. Tell your friends to listen, tell your enemies to listen, tell your mom to listen. If your neighbor has an unsecured Bluetooth speaker, connect to it and play an episode. You can follow us on social media at TGMEM_podcast. And if you've got a movie that you want us to talk about, send us an email at thegreatestmoviepodcast@gmail.com.
Are you guys done? Can I record now?
Oh yeah, I'll leave the mics set up. Just
okay.
Try not to. Last time, like, I don't know, that trunk of yours, I don't know if there's like a mucus situation, and I'm not judging you.
What?
Like, I know you got your own thing going
That's
on.
a fucked up man.
I just like, if you get something on it, just wipe it down. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me.